Okay, 2021 was a crazy year, and I'm sure you're looking forward to 2022 just like me, so we can wipe the slate clean and pretend like this last year never happened. But here's the harsh truth. 2022 is not going to be any different if we don't change and become different. See, maybe you're like me and you've battled with some feelings of anxiety or depression or hopelessness. Maybe this last year you've felt lost and directionless. I've battled these feelings for years, and I would procrastinate on doing anything about them. And here's the ironic part is I would actually procrastinate on fixing my procrastination. I would watch motivational videos on YouTube and I'd get fired up, and I would read self-help books and subscribe to these self-help gurus. And the problem is there seemed to be this barrier between my head and my heart. My problem didn't seem to be knowledge, it seemed to be the application of that knowledge. Knowledge. Or if I did attempt to change, I would do well for a little while, but I always seemed to revert right back to my old patterns and routines. And I actually started to feel powerless, like I was unable to change. Like there was this internal resistance to change because I would try and fail over and over and over. And maybe you've had a similar experience. And because of that, I always had this nagging question that I never knew how to answer. And that question was, why do we do the things that we don't want to do? And in reverse, why don't we do the things that we want to do? I never had a good answer to that question until about 2 years ago when I was confronted with a rather provocative perspective. I was finally able to see the unflattering reality that was preventing me from truly transforming my life. And accepting this reality finally gave me the right framework to begin overcoming my own subconscious resistances to change. But unfortunately, no one is really addressing this issue, at least from this angle, and it's probably because it is so unflattering. But I want to share this truth with you so that way you can have the proper framework to overcome your own subconscious resistances to change and truly transform your life in 2022. Okay, so I don't want to needlessly linger on a topic just to pad the runtime. So here's the unflattering reality that I was confronted with. And it's that almost all of us are addicted to destructive coping behaviors that lead us to stagnation. And to break free from these addictions and reverse our path of stagnation, we need to take a recovery approach to heal the root issues in our life that are causing us to seek out these destructive coping behaviors. Now, you may be thinking, Kyle, I'm not addicted to drugs or alcohol or smoking or gambling or anything like that. And that's probably a good thing. That's a good thing. Although that's not exactly the kind of addictions I'm talking about. However, they do apply. So please allow me a minute to give a little context to what I mean by addiction. Okay, by addiction, I mean to continue to repeat a behavior that is either harmful to ourselves or others despite the negative consequences. At its core, addiction is a loss of control. So with this definition, it could be said that we all have an addiction to something, from caffeine to cocaine, from sugar to heroin, TV to porn, anxiety to anger, and so on. Basically, it's whatever we use to cope with the world around us. And that's why I prefer the term coping behavior over addiction. And really, this could include anything. Binge watching entertainment, social media, video games, food, sex, porn, overworking, gossiping, shopping, risk-taking. It can include vanity or aesthetic fixations like plastic surgery or working out, tattoos, body modification. And of course, the more obvious ones such as gambling, drinking, smoking, drugs. And I know what you're probably thinking. And no, enjoying sugar, watching Netflix, or drinking coffee doesn't necessarily make you an addict, or it may. The key to remember is that addiction is repeated behavior that is harmful despite the negative consequences. So with that said, it is possible to have too much of a good thing. Now I'll explore that in a few seconds, but first let me define what I mean when I say we need to take a recovery approach. By recovery, I mean to literally return to a formerly healthy state, to return to who we were before we were wounded, hurt, and experienced the pain that led us to our coping behaviors in the first place. See, the result of pain is often fear. So recovery is a process of identifying those fears and working towards resolving them. Thus, recovery is more about healing than it is just abstaining from certain behaviors. It's more than just trying not to do that again. Okay, so with definitions out of the way, here's why this perspective matters. See, I found a lot of content about mindfulness and meditation and stoicism and gratitude and goal setting. And those are all fantastic practices, and they've helped to a degree, and I would recommend them. But I always felt like they missed something inside of me. Like there was something deeper that was preventing me from overcoming these bad habits. And maybe you're like me and you feel like trying harder just doesn't seem like it's working. For example, I would set goals and I'd do well for a while, but they would eventually just fade away. Or I would try to create a new habit like meditation or working out, and I'd be consistent for a while, but then I would just revert back to my old patterns. Or I would want to respond differently in my relationships, but it always felt like I was reading the same script over and over and over. It felt like my life always reverted back to the path of least resistance, and that because of that, somehow, my life felt like it was more difficult than it needed to be. And maybe you felt something similar as well. In fact, let me know in the comments what your experience with change has been in the past. And while you're at it, go ahead and hit subscribe, smash that like button, and help encourage YouTube to push this content to more people that need to hear this unflattering truth. Okay, moving on from the shameless plug. A commonly accepted perspective exists in the fields of psychology, self-help, materialism, hedonism, Eastern philosophies, religion, New Age teachings, and now pharmaceuticals. And that is, if we change our behavior, then we change who we are. So in other words, our behavior is the problem. However, I was confronted with a different view of change that went like this. In order to change what you do, first, you need to change who you are. The point is, you can't give up a coping behavior without resolving the initial pain that you're trying to anesthetize. Otherwise, you'll just find another way to cope. You'll trade one coping behavior for another. So instead, we need to realize that these coping behaviors, these bad habits we want to resolve, are symptoms. Because all coping behaviors primarily do one thing. They push, temporarily, unwanted thoughts, feelings, and emotions out of our conscious awareness. They are symptoms of a problem. You may actually be sober, as in controlling the behavior, but if you haven't resolved the underlying issues that behavior was trying to anesthetize, you'll just end up finding another way to cope. And that's why maybe you have felt that trying to control that behavior has thrown you into a cycle of insanity, where your desire to change often includes cutting back or eliminating one of those maybe habits I described earlier. But when we do that, we now don't have a way to numb the underlying pain or fear or stress that we're experiencing in our life. Thus, we subconsciously experience those painful messages, and our brains desperately crave something to help numb that discomfort. Thus, we revert back to dependence on those habits that we're trying to break free of, or we simply find new ways to cope, and the cycle continues. It's basically like changing seats on the Titanic. It doesn't matter, that ship's going down. So in conclusion, this video obviously isn't meant to address the underlying issues that have led to those coping behaviors. But the point of this video is to bring awareness to the fact that there are underlying issues that need to be resolved. And this is the angle that I felt was missing in a lot of the self-help, personal development circles. And there's a lot of good advice out there, but it seemed to miss the heart of the issue. I'm doing something that I don't want to do, and yet I find myself unable to stop doing it. Or I've stopped doing X bad habit, and yet I'm still struggling with depression or anxiety or hopelessness, confusion, procrastination, self-pity. Because the truth is, we can control the behavior and still be maladjusted to coping with pain or stress or fear in our lives. And that's why I want to present the idea that our coping behaviors can actually be more than just symptoms in our life. They can actually be a road to the wound. Meaning our coping behaviors can actually be an opportunity for us to identify the hurts and then begin to bring healing to that unconscious pain that's driving that behavior. Real personal recovery, remember that definition? It works to identify the unresolved thoughts, feelings, and memories that's caused by the pain of our woundedness. And at our core, we all have some unconscious fear surrounding these thoughts, feelings, and memories. True character-changing recovery seeks to name these fears that are at the root of our pain and resolve them. Okay, I'm planning future videos where I can unpack what this recovery process will look like in detail. But for now, I hope that I've at least been able to introduce a new perspective to allow you to begin viewing your change and growth differently. Hopefully, this new perspective will empower you to overcome and transform your life. And as always, thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment below. Let's help push this content to more people who need to hear this unflattering truth. So until next time,